to channel. Today was supposed to be a bunch of dyno pulls comparing the engine short ram intake on the F-150 3.5 liter Gen 2 EcoBoost compared to the stock airbox. Unfortunately, there were parts missing on the install, so we were not able to do that. Instead, we were down at the shop. We went to STP Motorsports down in Fort Lauderdale, and we were there, so we decided to make use of our time on the dyno. My truck has 5-star tuning, and we did 3 pulls with the 87 Performance Tow tune to get some good daily driver numbers using that tune. And then we did 3 pulls with the 93 octane Performance Only tune to see what the most that I was getting out of my truck for right now. Moving forward, I'm still going to do a comparison with the intake after I get some temperature sensors. So do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. More videos are to come, doing not only the intake, comparing before and after temperatures, and hopefully some more dyno numbers, and also some quarter-mile times. So hit that subscribe button and let's jump on the dyno.
Guys, I don't know if you can hear me, but let's go see what the baseline run is. Oh, still going. All right, let's go see what that baseline number looks like. Alright, so here we're looking at our first 2 pulls on the dyno. These are both running with the stock airbox. If you guys can see on our power, we've got a discrepancy of 351 to 393, and torque is 378 to 391. But you can see on this red graph, we've got a big dip in speed. So we're going to do one more pull on the stock airbox and kind of see where we're at. Alright guys, third pull. Here it looks like the numbers are a lot more consistent. We don't have that dip in the graph. Everybody say hi to Stefan. Let's see, where are we at as far as our good baseline? There we go, 393, max torque 453. That's what we're talking about. Those are our baseline numbers before the intake and before the 93 tune. So while the truck cools down, we're going to go ahead and swap out the aftermarket intake, and then we'll do pull number 2. I'm really kind of ticked off right now. So I started to install the engine intake after pull 1 on the dyno, and there's an issue with the temperature sensor location on the aftermarket intake, and I didn't read that in the reviews, and I didn't see anything on it on any of the YouTube videos. So unfortunately, we're not going to be doing an intake comparison video today. We're actually just going to be doing some pulls on the truck. I got the factory intake all put back together. We actually already did the 87 Performance Tow tune on the truck. Got a dyno reading, I think it was like about 450 torque and somewhere in the 300s. I don't remember the numbers. Retuning the truck right now, and we're going to do 1 pull on the 93 octane tune, what kind of horsepower and torque that thing puts out. We'll throw the intake on there later. And now that we've got some numbers as far as what the baseline tune is going to be and what the 93 octane tune is going to be, then I'll come back here maybe in a couple weeks. We'll do another base, or we won't even have to do a baseline. We can just tune for the intake, and we'll see what the difference is. All right, guys. I'm starting to get a little bit better attitude about the whole intake extension temperature sensor. It's cool. the first pull of the 93 tune, and we'll see what happens. That was the first one. Stefan's probably going to do about 3 initially. Right off the bat, we're 475, 552. That's a lot more than I expected. Let's see what the average is. All right, so super cold run, 474. One run right after that. Again, still the factory intake. On the 93 tune, that's 100 horsepower for heat. Maybe we'll do one more and see what happens. Right at the 498 torque with just a tune and an exhaust. All right, we're gonna run one more in a few minutes. Final run. 83 octane performance tune, 5-star tuning, stock airbox, aftermarket exhaust. Let's see what we got. 444, 498. All right. So
you got to be completely capable to make that 470.
So 3 tunes or 3 runs, 474. Motor been off for about half an hour, very cold. Immediately followed by 100 horsepower loss, probably due to heat. And then we let it sit. What did you say, Stefan? 5 minutes, 7 minutes. We got back another 70 horsepower just from sitting. Our torque stayed pretty close to the same. Still a 50 torque loss from being cold, but that's what we pulled off so far, and not a bad baseline to start from. All right, guys, just left STP. Didn't get everything that I had originally intended to accomplish accomplished. However, I think I learned a lot based on data that we collected. So throwing the 93 octane tune on there with the factory airbox, as you guys will see in the graph, from the first tune, from the first pull, the car had been sitting for about half an hour and was good and cold. We got well over 500 foot-pounds of torque and a really, really respectable horsepower number. I want to say we didn't even wait 30 seconds. We ran another pull to see what our numbers were, and we lost over 100. We lost over 100 horsepower and I think 70 foot-pounds of torque. So we let it sit for 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes, and we got a good portion of those numbers up. But what that does is prove to me how drastically heat affects the ecoboost motor. So I think we're going to go with my original plan. We're just going to structure it differently. So I've got the baseline numbers for both the 87 octane tune and the 93 octane tune, and I've got some data logging as far as intake air temperatures. I'm going to install the engine dual tube short ram intake probably in the next week, after I order some extension cables for the temperature sensor, and I'll do some temperature comparisons on before and after the intake. We'll see how much hotter the air is from the engine intake versus the stock airbox. I do think there's more flow out of the engine. Obviously, it's not as cold as the stock intake that has a snorkel coming out through the front of the grill. So I may end up going back to Stefan's shop. Big shout out to those guys over at STP. They were a big help. Helped me with some different things with the intake. real patient when we ran into some snags with the intake. And if any of you guys are in South Florida and are interested in running on the dyno and getting some numbers for your cars, great guy, very reasonable prices. STP Motorsports, check him out on Facebook. He's been there for 17 years. He's had the dyno for, I think he said, like 10, 12 years. Good guy. Big shout out to 5 Star Tuning. They've been real helpful customer service wise as far as updating tunes, and when you buy additional bolt-ons from them, they update your tunes for free. So big shout out to them. Nobody's endorsed this video. I'm just letting everybody know who I'm using and what I'm going for, and what I'm using to get numbers like 498 foot-pounds of torque, which is probably the number that I'm going to go with, being the third tune that was cool but not too cool. We'll probably have to do an intercooler and maybe meth, as that'll keep our intake temperatures down. So lots of videos coming. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.